And tonight we are looking at the state-owned enterprises, and there's a lot of talk about cracking the whip tonight from the head of SIGA, who is my guest tonight. He's been pretty upset today about something that happened at an event that he had put together to go through a very important document that has just been crafted to make SOEs more efficient. And my guest tonight was clear that the chief executive of these SOEs should simply leave if they cannot do the job. Well, pretty strong talk there, considering the fact that a lot of his CEOs are his own colleagues, right? And he's talking a bit of tough on this because he was disappointed in the conduct of some of these SOEs who failed to show up at this major event. I'm talking about Stephen Asamoah-Boateng, who is my guest tonight. According to him, just a third of these CSOs in these participated in this very important event. And what event was this? This is a governance code that has just been developed. They wanted the chief executive, the heads of these state enterprises to come together, review it. As of course, this is going to go before Parliament for approval. And it was a CSOs may, according to this new governance code, and as it was articulated today by Stephen Asamoah-Boateng, if it's passed, in implementing it, the CEOs of these SOEs may face removal from office if they breach this proposed governance code, including the board themselves, can also be dissolved. And so this is a code that will have serious consequences for non-performance, because I'll tell you what the numbers say when it comes to these state enterprises and whether or not they are performing. Now, it is also to help improve efficiency and cut down on the losses that we've seen over the years. And there's a lot of evidence to tell us that these state-owned enterprises are simply not performing, right? Because it was revealed recently when you look at the finance minister talking about the performance of these state-owned enterprises, that we have more than 47 of them. They failed to file their annual financial statements as required. I argue, and many have argued, that if this is a legal requirement or a legislative requirement that some of these 47 have failed to do, why wait for a governance code to crack that whip? Because this clearly shows that that person at the helm is not respecting the statutes that indeed created his own organization. And these are the numbers. We're going to put down for you, as you see on the screens here, the inefficiency, how much it's costing the state. And again, this is according to the finance ministry. Losses just between 2018 and 2019 alone, in 1 year. In 2018, we are talking about 188 million cedis. In 2019, we are talking about 586.4 million cedis. That because of these inefficiencies of these SOEs, the state has lost. This is huge amount of money that a country, a poor country like Ghana, needs. And that is, you see why Stephen Asamoah-Boateng is taking this pretty seriously and sounding all the warnings and cautions to his colleagues. And again, if you look at the revenue expenditure and the statistics that show, they are underperforming. The evidence is pretty glaring for us, because we are talking about state enterprises. And again, according to the finance ministry, if you put them together, they are worth 810 billion, all 126 of them. This is quite significant for an economy like Ghana. This will go a long way to help our GDP. It was approximately 27% of the 2020 GDP. This is how important they are if they are on top of their game. You see why government is spending all the resources, the time to come up with the code of this governance code, the performance criteria that is now also they've been asked to sign on to. And there's a lot of talk now about cracking the whip. We'll talk about that very shortly. How realistic is that? Seeing that a lot of these appointments, as some say, are political. Some say it's just a reward for people's loyalty during election. So necessarily it's not about competence when people have been appointed to these state-owned enterprises. It's the argument that has been put forward. I'll put it to the man at the helm very shortly when he joins us. And so how is it realistic to expect that the whip can now be cracked? Because listen, we've had this in the past before. The numbers are obvious. So what will change now? Stephen Asamabwatik says he holds the key to this. He's my guest tonight on PM Express. Stay with us. My guest in the studio tonight is Stephen Asamabwatik. He is the boss of the State Interest and Governance Authority. And he's joining me because of a major event today, but it's fundamental to shaking up the state enterprises that we have in this country. And I've just illustrated for you the huge amounts of money that the country is losing annually just because these state-owned enterprises are underperforming. And the potential that they have in billions and billions of cedis, more than 27% of the economy, indeed, if indeed they are up to the game. And so Stephen Asamabwatik has been pretty tough today in making a lot of pronouncements. Mr. Asamabwatik, thank you again for joining me on PM Express.
Thank you, Evans.
Always good to have you.
Thank you,
on the show.
Thank you.
I mean, we had you today at this event. You were, mildly putting it, you were upset at some of the chief executives of the state enterprises. First of all, they didn't show up. But I listened to you and I sense you were not only upset because they didn't show up, but because of the urgency of the situation that you clearly articulated as the non-performance that we've seen over the years. But seriously, can you blame them?
Thank you, Evans, and thank you for the viewers. We have a huge task to perform from State Interest and Governance Authority, and we have set out to achieve exactly what the law asks us to do, meaning administer and supervise the interest of the state in these entities, and to make them efficiently run and make profits. And obviously my end game is to get them to pay dividend. And those who are not commercially set up should raise the standard of service delivery. And so I look at all these things. And of course, in our scheme of things, the law gives us the right to do certain things. One of them is the ownership policy. What does it mean? What does the owner want from these assets? And then when you have done that, then the question is the performance management system. How do you monitor that? How do they perform? How do you manage that and monitor they're doing it? And then, of course, one of the key ingredients to measure is the code of corporate governance, which we do. We've used the performance contracting system, which is negotiating and agreeing on the key performance indicators and make sure that we measure their performance, normally quarterly. But even we are moving into an online monitoring, which we don't have to wait a quarter. But the element of the corporate governance, it's something I am passionate about. For you to be able to perform, you must know your role in the architecture of corporate governance. You know, we have the board, we have the MD and the management, then we have the staff. And so the rules are simply that everybody must know their role, the strategic direction from the board, and the management of the day-to-day of the business.
But they know this, don't they?
Oh, they do. And I'll come to the point what I said today. And so these are set out, and all the CEOs and the board are aware of these things. You're sure, you're right about that. And the president has clearly identified the people who can function in those areas. And I'm grateful for that opportunity to work with these CEOs. And the caliber is high. And I've interacted with them not just by the rules of the law or the tenets of the law, but also the culture that we want to build. We don't want a situation where we always use the cane or the crack the whip, but rather let them buy into the spirit of working for public service. And the spirit of working for public service is the culture you build. And so we created even the Chamber of CEOs so that we can learn from each other. We can correct ourselves. The image, as you probably pointed out, has been bad in the past. It's not just because of our government, but it's been the case from even Dr. Kwame Nkrumah's time. So we need to change the mindset. And this is what I've been pursuing. And it's not from me. Listen to what the president said. The president swore in the board, when my board was sworn in. And he charged them. The attitude must be new king, new law. A new authority, a new culture, a culture of accountable governance and of respecting the norms, sensibilities, and practice of good corporate governance, not only amongst you, but amongst the institutions that you report. You understand? So even the president recognized the corporate governance, because without that, you cannot perform effectively. You'll be interfering with each other. There will be animosity. And so today, when we had crafted the code, and we have done an internal work within SIGA, you cannot just force it on anybody. You have to engage them, engage the stakeholders. Without your stakeholders, which is the entities, as well as the development partners that have helped us this far, and we have the AFD and the World Bank and all that, you cannot go far. They have to buy into it. They have to participate. They have to own it and be honest about what we've written and make changes if there is any. And we set out 9 o'clock. So I went the 9 o'clock sharp, and I was a bit taken aback because I look at the room, we're supposed to start, the rest. And then I noticed about a third were in the room. So I checked with my colleagues and my workmate, my staff. And 9 o'clock it was. So I waited for about another 30 minutes, 40 minutes. I said, let's start. And as the time we were starting, then I would notice some were just coming in. That's fine, I mean, but it was still late. And then we also noticed that some were now joined, because it was two-way, physical presence and also virtual.
So and even for the virtual, they were late? Even
the virtual, some of them logged in late, because we were recording who was logging in, who was them. So obviously, I know their caliber. I know how serious they want to work. I know what they've done. And this report I've got, which would be one of the exclusive I brought to you, will show that there's been a marked improvement. But you see, the danger sign in Ghana is that people get complacent when there is some improvement. And they slack back. And that's what I try to prevent by saying, oh, hang on a second. This meeting was supposed to start. Time management at 9 o'clock. Well, now you're starting about almost 10 o'clock. Where are you? And so I think that sounded a bit harsh, I know that. But it quickly alerted some of them who were not joining. And my staff informed me that, indeed, those who were not in the room have logged in. We invited about 106 who reported on the financial statements last quarter. You know, the Minister of Finance had been criticizing, and you rightly said 47 who have not submitted. And they have. Indeed, I'll show you figures that the 47 had reported on the 2019 figures and 2020 figures. What we had a problem with was the 2017 and 2018. And the reason was that there was a backlog of 2012 when Kufuor's government came, and I forced them to try and get with the Auditor General to try and get the auditors in quickly. So we covered the backlog up to 2016. But when they were still covering 2018, I said, no, stop that. It's in the past. Yes, I need to read it at some point. But really, that doesn't affect your performance now. Or if there's a problem, I need to see the current one, not the historical one. So we sort of stopped them for a while and concentrated on the 2019, because I needed to get this report out quickly.
What report is this?
This is the ownership report. You remember I said the three key functions. One, the ownership policy in which the report comes out, the performance management system or framework, and then the corporate governance. So I needed this quickly, and to me, the governance impacts on this one. And so, yes, sir, but as soon as I mentioned, I'm telling you, my people then elected them and they logged in. Somehow, you see, when you expect certain level of performance, and I do respect my CEOs a lot. In the end, I know they can do it. But I think sometimes it's just time management, that kind of stuff. And 9 o'clock became a 10 o'clock.
But that today showed you why they are inefficient.
Not really. I mean, time, and since that time, I spoke to the key ones I know. And some of them were having board meetings. And maybe the time clashed.
But you've given them advance notice of this event
we did give them advance notice. Some were having, some called me, oh, today our board set up, because they have, I can give one example. PBC, for instance. PBC had a serious matter of debt management, and yesterday, myself and Minister of Finance had given them a comfort letter. And so quickly they had to organize a meeting so that they can get the funding from Cocoa Board to be able to purchase the cocoa. You know, we are the season is almost ended. Yes. And so they were in a meeting, so I couldn't force PBC to come, for instance. So there are others. And then I realized that, it's a combination of time and everything. But they came. In fact, the online registration came to about 38. And then in the room, we counted about almost 50 something.
But fundamentally...
So it's a timing when we didn't start at 9. Maybe it's my time. I have a difficulty in when I give you 9, it must be 9. In fact, you must be there 8:45.
Yeah.
It's my baker's son attitude.
But fundamentally, you wanted this governance code that you've drafted. What is it?
Well, basically, is to let them be aware that you don't work in a vacuum. In the corporate world, you got to have a boardroom that has serenity, atmosphere, respect for each other, and there's a structure and architecture that you have to follow. And invariably, if you remember, in about 2-3 years back, there were little ajibaji between board chairman and CEO, if you remember. Some spirit in the newspapers and the radio.
Which still happens.
No, at the moment. Don't
it doesn't?
No.
I mean, we're not reporting
Give me one over the past 2 years.
We saw one at GMPC.
GMPC when? That was about 3 years ago.
Yes, but that was a recent
before
case.
SIGA. That was State Enterprise
So your
Commission.
point is, since
I was there at SIGA.
Since your organization came into being, you're saying that this has not happening again?
No. I've never, unless you tell me, as I sit here now, I've never heard of any animosity between a board and a CEO.
So why
never.
the governance code?
The governance code has been helpful to us, although we
But you just drafted it.
Sorry? But it's not been a new one. I mean, everybody knows what corporate governance is about. Yeah. So it's not something rocket science that they don't know. So we keep on talking about it. We have a chamber concept where we do talk. But today is like a document. You may know something, but you need a document that we can use as a Bible reference point. And that's why it's a code. And so, yes, they're doing some of them, but I wanted us to agree on the document. We can release it. Then you can check them. I can check them. Somebody can check them because that's a code.
Is it going to go to Parliament for approval?
I'm not sure it will go because
I heard you say today that
no, it doesn't go to Parliament. We share it with them. Okay. We share it with other stakeholders, the presidency, the Parliament, ministers. But the law of SIGA, Act 990, gives us the responsibility in the clause 4D that we have to develop a code for acceptance. So it doesn't have to go back to Parliament. But once we get the document in, then it's a question of implementation. Which at the end of the day today, I must admit, they showed up online. And I understand why. But at the time, they didn't log in. Because I use computers to check who is there, who is not there. So by the time your guys interviewed me about 10, 15, thereabout, I saw the people in the room. So I thought, excuse me, 9 o'clock, why are you standing? Where are the rest? Then I went to check. As soon as they finished the interview, I checked my guys. What's going on online? So they brought me the list, and there were 38 already locked in.
Yeah, I mean, you said today that if this code is adopted, there will be sanctions. Sanctions for non-performance, all the way down to removal of CEOs and dissolutions of board.
Yes, in fact.
Let me put it to you, Mr. Samabate, that you don't need a code, do you, to sanction failing CEOs and dissolving boards. The president, as we speak, still already has the power to sack CEOs for non-performance and dissolve boards that are not performing.
But we don't just use the code to do that. I've mentioned the policy, the ownership policy.
But you agree that the power already exists to sack and dissolve?
No, why not? Why not? There have been some removals in the past. I mean, I'm not here to give you individual removals.
So you don't need a code for this?
Not necessarily, but it enhances the power. You understand?
There's
already the ownership policy where this report, for instance, this is the 2019 report based on the 2019 accounts. And then we are now developing the 2021. That alone, whatever is here, we can use it to sanction.
Yeah, but why are you not sanctioning?
Well, because for instance, the report has just come out. This is if you have an exclusive. You have an exclusive.
I'm going to come to the details.
You have an exclusive. Yes. Don't worry about it. So now I'm going to, but even if you read it, we are not sanctioning because the report looks good. You remember
before the report, the finance ministries, what I just illustrated at the beginning.
Yeah.
They have data on how...
The data related to 2018, 2017, I told you.
I get it. But I guess my question to you is, on the basis of that, why haven't we seen sanctions, removals, and dissolutions of boards on the basis of that?
Let me tell you a simple reason. We came into government 2017, January. I took over from State Enterprise Commission on the 24th of April, 2017. I quickly noticed that almost about 90% of state entities had their accounts from 2012 not audited. So what? You begin to sanction the new CEO who has just come in, whose fault it was not for the 2016, 2015. Why should I do that? It's not fair. So yes, you can generalize and sack them, but you cannot do that. You just come in, you've appointed them. So somebody's left their job undone, which is the previous administration, all I could do is to get them to speed up and get the Auditor General to sit down with me. It used to be Daniel. So we sat down and we then quickly got the auditors in. So I can tell you by 2018, we've covered almost 2012, 2013, 2014, 2015. Then come 2019, we had already covered 2017. So by the time we did the performance contract about a month ago, where the Minister of Finance talked about 47 not submitting, it related to the 2018 accounts.
That's true.
And we stopped it because, yes, I need a 2018 account, but that's historical. Yes, history is good, but what do I need it for now?
But the finance minister said in 2018 that the SOEs lost 188 million. In 2019, under your watch,
it's not just that year.
It's
a cumulative debt. It's a cumulative debt. Look at that. Look at the figures here. I can show you the diagram. This is the trend, the profitability trend. Maybe your cameras can pick that up.
Yes.
Okay. This is the profitability. This is from 2015. That's not our time.
Yeah.
This is 2016. That's not our time. But even that went up. Yeah. That's the profitability trend.
Yeah.
But 2017 this is 2016, right? This is 2017. Look at 2017. As soon as we took over, this is what we noticed.
This is a significant dip.
This is what we came to inherit this dip.
Yeah.
But from there, 2018, 2019, you can see we are going up. Yeah. And why do you blame the CEO who is there now?
Let me see. I mean, so you're saying, I mean, and this is report. Has it been launched?
Actually, it will be launched tomorrow.
Okay.
That's why I say you have an exclusive.
So we have this data. This is
a performance
profitability, and in 20, this lowest dip we have here
is right in the middle of the first week or first month of 2017.
So I see here minus 260. Of what?
That's a billion of debt they've accumulated.
Wow. In 2017.
Yeah, it was terrible.
And then this climbs up
improvement. And
to 28.
Yes.
And then goes to
2019. Right. So 2020, I'm looking for an improvement. As I said, my little frustration was my perfection attitude. I'm a baker's son. I keep on telling a baker's son, the bread must be out at 5 a.m. So for me, if you are not waking up at 3, it means the bread will be out late.
Is this the first time this report has been compiled?
No, this is the third one. We started with 2017, 2018, this is 2019. And if you look at it, the first time we started, we only had 18 entities reporting. Then we moved to 20. This is the figures. You can see that. The Minister of Finance had it here. Here, I can show you. Here. We had 18.
Yeah.
Then 2019, 2018, 49. Now we have 77 reporting their financial status. So there's an improvement. So it is not, and as I said, it is not because they're not performing, and you cannot sanction them for this improvement. Look at even the performance of the individual companies. The top 10 SOEs by revenue. Look at that, ECG. Where people's perception is that ECG is not performing.
Let me see this. Because you're saying top 10 SOEs by revenue.
Yeah.
ECG is number 1.
Yep.
VRA number 2. ECG beats GMPC.
Yep.
In terms of
revenue. Yep.
I mean, of course. I mean, every Ghanaian pays electricity bill. But Mrs. Obama, somebody said.
But you know what? The difficulty, and if you read that alone, it doesn't explain everything. Look at their cost. This is where they turn up negative figures. It's because their cost is so high.
But ECG's liability also leads everybody else.
Exactly. I mean, the liability is a bit over.
And assets,
but look at the assets, high assets.
Yeah, assets.
So if you compare the high assets to liability on one-on-one ratio, it's better than the everything. So ECG assets are better than the liability.
Outperforms everybody else.
Yes, in revenue.
In assets, in liabilities.
Yeah, but in the cost, look at the cost.
Net profit is the VRA leads all everybody
else. Net profit VRA goes up.
You know.
So it's far improved version than we know. So the story of SOE is not performing is a past story. We're now moving, and this one tomorrow, I brought it for you to understand that the situation is not as bad as we thought. And I can tell you right now, even VRA, I am forcing them to even pay dividend. But you can see, if you talk about their liabilities, look at their liabilities, which is almost about 9 billion. But look at their net profit, VRA. It's what? It's 1.
Yeah. So VRA's net profit. VRA has net profit beats everybody else.
Yes.
So you are this is 1.2 billion.
Yeah, billion, yeah.
Net profit that you're making.
Yeah, but look at the cost element. So if you look at it, then I prefer them to plow back the money into their business and to improve the operations. Are you with me?
Yeah.
Rather than government taking the dividend and put it in general consolidated fund.
Yeah.
So we have to make a decision as a decision body organization and the president and the minister of finance. So it's a complex nature. It's not as simple as people that, they are not performing. My beef today was the timing of starting.
Yeah.
So that's gone.
Yeah.
And I said, when I went and searched their online logging in, I noticed that some of them had clashes. So they were logging in.
Let me ask you. So this is the evidence on the evidence. What would you say what is accounting for this?
It's cost.
I mean, when it's accounting for this performance that you say
yes, in terms
pleases
of the
you.
performance that is improving, three things I would say. One is the performance contract system we have built into SIGA.
So they've signed on to it?
Every one of them have signed into it.
And how are you enforcing this?
It's monitoring and evaluation. What we do is we move people on the ground. We do ask for the data. We do ask them to feed in the system that we want them to report so we can do the analysis. So what we do is that we send officers down the line. My finance directors and their finance directors are always working. Now we are even moving on to a smart work environment where we can have a portal, they log in, so we don't have to physically go and pick up the documents. And that is improving. And they know we are constantly on them. And I also, if they fail, I call the CEO, I call the board chairman, and we have that personal interaction, which is very cordial. And so really, this is a heaven. Then the second one, apart from the performance contract signing and the monitoring, it's also the culture we built. The culture that President Akufo-Addo has built into us, and that's why I read what he said to us, that it's a new king, new law. You cannot go back to the old culture, and you need to build a culture of accountability and respecting norms. So if you don't respect the norms, you fall foul. And so that is also helping us. Then the last bit, which is the corporate governance, which I know the document itself is not out, but now for the past 3 years, I haven't heard any ajibaji, any argument. That's an improvement. And that has brought in calmness. GMPC matter you talk about. Now I can tell you the board chair and the CEO are bodies. We sworn them in, myself and Minister for Energy. We inaugurated them about a couple of weeks ago, and my own brother, Brady Blay, was there, my brother, KK Support, there, and they were hugging, and so I looked at them and I thought, what's going on here? They said, well, that's in the past, it's gone, which is true. It was understanding each other, and that is the first time we come to government, 2017, so it started from that end. And we needed to get everybody to understand. And GMPC, for instance, that time I can tell them that one of the reasons why they were arguing is that I had not had a chance to get them through a training program. In fact, they are one of the few.
But you're talking about two very astute politicians, businessmen. Yeah. They didn't need any training.
They do. Unfortunately, they do.
In what?
Training, everybody does. It's a continuous training. You can never forget about. If you get, apart from my uncle, I hear a grandfather, typical fancy man, went to education, never worked for anybody to chop his money. On the day he was being buried and on his deathbed, a scholarship came from Scotland. He has to go. And my grandmother, Auntie Adwa, they also, oh, Kwisatu, what's the bush? He was still learning even in death. Education, continuous education is so key. And so, yes, they know, but times change, systems improve. IT's infrastructure are different. And so, from my SIGA's point of view, you get them into a room, you got to take them through, ask them questions. I came across one particular board member whom we went to train, and she wasn't paying attention, always flicking something. I said, excuse me, ma'am, you got to pay. Oh, I said, I can't phone back face the Bible. I said, excuse me. So that's what you are here to do. Just go and fetch the food. And I then started going through the fiduciary responsibilities and how the Public Financial Management Act and the regulation can affect them, where it talks about not only sanctions, punitive measures. Then she sat up. Then suddenly she paid attention. On the second day, she was like on top of the job. So this is the kind of thing that we have to, we can't just relax because they know.
I want to interrogate this document that you just outdoored on my show very shortly. I want to take a break. When I return, I'll interrogate the document a bit more. So fundamentally, what criteria did this document use in measuring the performance, for example? I've seen revenue. Is that the only one? What is the most important criteria? And is this document measuring the right things? Stay with me. Sam Barton is my guest in the studio. He's just outdoored a document that shows, from the evidence on the face of it, yet to be launched tomorrow, that shows that the state enterprises in Ghana in the last at least 2 years, or I mean more than that, are beginning to make profit. The performance story is changing. But I need to ask you this, because are we measuring the right things? What measure are we using to judge these CSOs to say that they are performing now?
Yeah, and the figures are clear. And let me go back and say that my disappointment of the comments here today bore on the fact that I had seen this document. I was part of it writing. But today when it came and I read it in the morning, I thought, bingo, we got some good news. Let me share that with my colleagues. And they were not there. I said, excuse me. So let me ginger them up a bit. It's just they know my character. Yeah. It's not angry. It's not anger. It's just to get them to sit up and not to be complacent. The criteria we use are simple. Look at this coverage on the report, aggregate turnover. The aggregate turnover for SOEs is about 31%. Of the total of 93 billion, SOEs have 31. Of course, JVCs are doing better. They've got joint venture with private sector involvement. That's 49%. And then the other state entities are coming up with about 20%. But if you go to the aggregate net profit, you see that the SOEs made losses. JVCs made losses, but the other state entities made surpluses. They're not commercially set up like the NPA, National Petroleum Authority. Yeah. They don't make profit, but they make surpluses. But we haven't set up a system to retrieve some of the surplus. So this is another area I want to go into. Then going to the total liabilities. If you look at total liabilities, SOE is 37% of the 226 billion. The total liabilities 226 billion, but total assets is 308 billion. Meaning that on a ratio, on liquidity ratio, our liability can be covered by the assets. If we sell all the state assets, we can cover our liabilities. Are you with me? And that's what we want, one-on-one, ratio of one to one. And so we are almost good. And these are the criteria we use. Then, of course, another criteria I am very keen, which we use, is the employment contribution. The current problem we face in Ghana is how do people get jobs? I mean, if you get a job, then you are looking after your family and you pay income tax. You are self-sufficient. You look after the house. So you look at the SOE contribution to employment, 51%, huge. And even if you look at the numbers, of the total of about 56,000, not million, I want you to be going to 100,000, but 56,000 at the moment, SOEs alone take 28,800.
Because you have, this is MPP jobs you're creating.
It's
a job for the boys.
No, don't go there.
No, but isn't that what it is? That these state enterprises employ, we know what happens at the state enterprises. The parties flood them with party supporters.
You know what? If you want to go into politics, let me go to politics.
Yes.
When we came in 2017, Cocoa Board, which had a workforce of about under 3,100 when myself and President Kufuor's government left, 2008, when we came back, you know the numbers? 8,500 and over. Double. And there were about 4 people doing one job. I can tell you, Cocoa Board.
Yes.
So when we came back 2016, 17, we thought, excuse me, let's cut some down. And they came back and said, how do you cut them down? There's unemployment. They are Ghanaians. Let them be there. They may be NDC, but it doesn't matter. They are Ghanaians. And that's when the Minister for Agric and the Cocoa Board people started doing some innovation. Go and do hand pollination. You remember? So instead of laying them off, retain them. Employment is what we're looking for. Create, and that's what it shows in the figures.
But you've employed more people now.
I'll give you one example. And you are shifting to another. Let me finish that one. So they went on hand pollination. Now we have crossed the 1 million mark of cocoa production. You understand? Hand pollination. And then then Minister for Agric went into the
But all you've said is to confirm that we are using state enterprises as vehicles to employ political hands.
It's not political hands. Let me look. When Dr. Nkrumah started state enterprises, it was for development agenda. We are just come out of independence. You've gained your independence. How do you get your people to be employed? And you got a state entity there. Number one job is to create employment for them, for people. So if you don't, and you say it's for your people, are they not Ghanaians? So what NDC did or NPP did, they are all Ghanaians. Are you with me?
Yeah, but that shouldn't be the
So
way
who should
you
go there?
run.
We should go and get Cote d'Ivoire people to come and
No,
employ.
we should advertise and employ the very best, not based on party
But who said those people engaged by the NDC were not advertised and created? I don't know. But we came to
They
meet
certainly
Your
were
question
not.
started with us creating MPP, creating.
Yeah.
You use the word MPP
True.
just for the
But you haven't denied that. That the state enterprises that we have currently, just like the NDC did, do that. I mean, I'm just saying that the numbers of employment is good. But I'm questioning whether these numbers are numbers of Ghanaians who genuinely qualify or Ghanaians who, because they are there because they are NPP people.
So are you telling me the NDC people put them there because they were NDC? Were they not Ghanaians?
That's possible.
They were not Ghanaians?
But were they qualified?
Oh, I mean,
but that's an important point for an SOE, right?
I think it's something we
because you've done the comparison between the state, the private enterprises. Well, the private enterprise do very well. Ooh. Because employment into a private enterprise is based on purely your qualifications.
You and I cannot go into their HR manuals or their records to see whether they have CVs or not. Forget about that. The Ghanaians were employed. In fact, the development agenda by Dr. Kwame Nkrumah then was to create state entities to employ Ghanaians. That was the #1 criteria in those days. Now we have moved in from there to financial performance. So we are looking at the
So apart from the employment criteria, you're also using profitability?
Yeah, we are using aggregate turnover, net profit, liabilities, and assets.
And then jobs
the liquidity ratio.
Yeah.
And then capital employed. If you come here, you see the capital employed by them. Okay, so the assets and the liabilities, and when you know these assets they are utilizing. So if you are using the assets, the question is, what's the net profit of that asset?
Yeah.
Then you have to have the ratio to qualify. And it's improving.
Overall, is this document suggesting that the SOEs in the last 3 years have begun to turn a profit?
Yes, almost all of them, if you can see. And I gave you individual ones. That's the top 10 performing one.
The fact that they are increasing their revenue doesn't mean that they're making profit.
Oh, I understand. But that's why I said the problem and the issue I need to help them solve, when you want to improve your financial performance, like a good housekeeping. Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher taught me when I was in England that managing a country is like a housekeeping. So you bring revenue by your income, and what do you spend? Electricity, water, school fees, that kind of stuff, food. Then you subtract it from your revenue. You should have some leftover for emergencies. But in this case, if you are not careful and your revenue outstrips your expenditure outstrips your revenue, you are in serious trouble. So you have to find extra money, which is an overdraft or some borrowing. So what we realize is that once the revenue goes up, cost is also catching up. What we need to do is to bring the cost down, and then the gap widens. That's where the profits happen, and that's where dividend comes in. That's the next phase.
You've said today that things will change going forward because you'll be cracking the whip, even to the point of sacking people. I put it to you that that's just rhetoric. You cannot sack any of your colleagues if they underperform.
I don't sack.
I mean,
and I never use the word sack. In fact,
removed.
Read the words I use.
Removed.
No. I said that if you
removed and dissolved, removed for CEO, dissolved for the board. I listen to you.
Give me a chance.
I listen to you today.
You listen wrongly. I'm here. I'm sitting here.
What happened? Yeah, tell me.
So thank you for giving me the chance.
Okay.
I use the words that if you cannot do the job, then ask permission to leave. You read it. Ask permission. It means you yourself must admit that, look, there are people out there who may want the job.
But that's not how you run an effective functioning enterprise.
But I don't even sack. It's the appointing authority. I didn't appoint them, and we'll come to that in a minute, how they're appointed and how they're dismissed. I don't do that. But the law of SIGA asks us, under clause 4.J, said that we should advise the president, the appointing authority, in the appointment and removal. Yes. How do I do that? The only way I can do that is to monitor their performance.
True, and report to the president.
And also do the open selection, and then advise the president that, look, even if you want to appoint, why don't you open it up and
you have the courage, Mr. Wambate. A lot of these CEOs are your friends, contemporaries.
I know.
To tell the president that this is objective. This man is failing. Sack him. You have the courage to do that.
Why not? Why not? The president is president is my boss, and he's asked me to do a job. And he's asked me to be sincere and frank with him. And when I go to him, I served with him as a minister in President Kufuor's time.
Yes.
And we have a very good relationship. And I can go in and say, Mr. President, there's a problem here.
But you will not recommend that somebody sack, although
why not?
You will.
I don't want to go into individual. You know, in the past we've got there are some few things
that you've recommended that somebody should be sacked based on non-performance.
Case where I even came into the middle of Ghana cylinder manufacturing and all that. You remember that?
I remember.
But I'm just saying that this is not my job. But my job is
it's the president's job.
Yes.
He hires and
Article 195, and today I heard you interviewed me on Haruna Idris's matter that we should. The president is acting against the constitution.
He appoints in consultation.
Exactly.
And if he appoints, he can disappoint.
Exactly.
And my question I ask you, and I come back to a very fundamental point, is the way these appointments are made. And many have questioned that it's not advertised. Haruna Idris's fundamental point: you don't advertise, you don't open it to the best qualified. It's mostly a reward for people who are loyal to the president. Isn't that what it is?
Haruna Idrisu, my brother, young brother, he's learning fast, was a minister in the Mahama administration. You should come and tell us whether they were advertising. Were they? Were they? The constitution was clear, and they used the constitution. Subject to the provisions of this constitution, the power of appointment to appoint persons to hold or act in the office in the public service shall, it's not even may, it says, shall vest in the president acting in accordance with the advice of the governing board council of the service concerned, given in consultation with the public. They were using that. So what's wrong with Akufo-Addo, President Akufo-Addo doing that? You see, what encourages me working with Akufo-Addo, and that's the beauty of Akufo-Addo's administration and the beauty of his understanding of democracy. He is prepared to give up some of his powers, knowing very well that would enhance corporate governance. Indeed, we are in a corporate world. We are competing with the private sector. We need to have a private sector mindset, which is what SIGA is trying to do. And in doing that, you must instill some discipline. So we have said, okay, we will come up, because the law of SIGA said, across 4J said, we should advise him. How do I do that? How do SIGA does that? We have to go out and do some open
monitoring.
And even an MPP person, if you are not close by the appointing authority, how do we know you are in SIGA, you are qualified? Unless we open it up. And in the MPP, people will be more enthusiastic to even apply than the NDC man who lost power. The other way around the same. If the NDC was in government and they have won and they are all jubilant and all that, and they say, okay, CEO's advert, they'll be eager to go and find an application. But if you don't do that and it's only by people who are sitting next to the president and they mention their schoolmates and their friends, how did the person who was a party member in Pusiga know and apply? So we are trying to be more open, and the president is very clear that, look, Asabi, and he said, new law. I read it to you, that there's a new culture. And he's open up. So I am encouraged by that. And that we set up a task force, a committee, not just me, my own idea, a task force involving Public Service Commission, Ministry of Finance, Controller and Accountant General, Department, Audit, Attorney General, and we are doing that. They are giving me members to form the committee. And
to do a whole committee, what does this committee do?
Or it is to look at the framework of appointment. That instead of the constitution, open it up. And then, you see, because even in the problem
of open up to everybody else.
Sorry?
We want to open up to everybody else.
We think it should be opened. So that even your own party people who are not close to you may even hear about it and would be encouraged to come in. Are you with me? So what we do, and when you've even appointed them through that system, they go in and they are not politically, what we call politically connected, in the sense that they cannot be a Koliko type of people.
Yes.
Are you with me?
Yeah.
So that I know certain instances
they cannot become puppets in the hands of those.
Exactly. So sometimes a CEO who may take advantage, there might be a board meeting and he doesn't want to talk to the board chairman, or there's a problem. And today I'm going to see the chief of staff, which means he avoid coming to the meeting. But if he's going through that and there's no political puppet, as you may well put it, then he will know that he has to perform. So whether he doesn't like the chief, the board chair, or he likes him, the result of their performance is what we are going to use to pay him. So it is a good way, and this is the first time we are doing that. But it doesn't mean it will come to the law. The president can throw it away and say, Siga, thank you very much. The law says you should advise me, but I'm not taking your advice. So there's nothing wrong in opening up and talking and discussing. All I did was to open up to discussion, and then we put a paper to the president, and he says, thank you very much, but no thank you.
Let me ask you, I mean, so on the evidence of all that you've done, you've been at SIGA for what, 3-4 years? 3 years.
About 4 years, because I was there for State Enterprise Commission. So SIGA came in 2019. SIGA's about 2 years. Yeah. But I was there a year and a half before that.
Okay. Now we've seen the document. You say this is, you take credit for this. for the improvement that you've just illustrated with this report?
I don't personalize successes to myself. I work with a team. I work with people who are competent to handle it. The people who are CEOs and board chair are quality people. The president selected them consciously. And he knows them personally. So what I did, as I said, move away from the law and use the soft option of culture.
I ask you that.
Put them together to work as a team. That's why I created the Chamber of CEOs. So we can correct ourselves.
So this is teamwork.
So it's a collective work.
I ask you that
not
because...
Just me. It's not I can't take
I ask you that because this achievement will come to play, as some have whispered to me, when you finally jump onto the political, field again fully to run as a chairman, to run for the chairmanship of the MPP, correct?
I knew you would go there. Once you got me in your studio,
I had to ask you.
I've been trying to avoid studios because the party has not opened nomination yet.
Yeah.
So everything I'm saying is just a bit of indication,
Yes.
but you want to put me on spot.
Yeah, so my question is simple.
The simple answer is that I intend to contest, yes. Whether it is by my performance and the performance of SIGA, let's wait. The time comes, you hear about why I am in there.
But this will be important in your track record. You have a long history of service.
I do.
This is the very latest one that most people remember. But this is important to you. Why, right?
It's important.
In this context that you're going to jump into.
It's important to Ghana. It's important to the MPP.
But why do you want to be a chairman?
I am a political animal for number one. When I was a young 18-year-old person, and I understand that when you got good leadership of any organization, either a country or a party, you have a strength to advance your what you want to do, your objectives. And my party is a very solid, intellectually and mass organization that has people from all manner of places. But sometimes, when you come into government, sometimes there's a disconnect, and I've noticed a disconnect. And it's happened to us when we were in the government before, and we lost. The same thing with the NDC. There's a disconnect, they lost. It is your own party people that sometimes talks you down. And I have noticed that. Why should I stand down for that disconnect to happen, and then 2024 we go down? For me, when the MPP stays in government, Ghana is better off. We are the better managers of the economy. So my job is, yes, I've got SIGA, and I have to sit down with the president and work it out. But I'm telling you, the number one job is my intention for the chairmanship, where we can hold a party that is strong enough, energized. That's the key. I'm bringing energy, I'm bringing in motivation and excitement. With my experience of local government, with information minister, with environment minister, with tourism, with a member of parliament, now working in the corporate environment, turning companies around. What better wealth of experience is that? So let's wait till the time, and it's not mine to decide. The people out there, the party people, they know
delegates
me. They know me. I don't have to.
Well. So Sombating, thank you very much. Always a pleasure talking to you. Enjoy the rest of your evening.
My name is Kujo Yankson. Let me tell you how to turn back time. You can now bring back all the fun, all the excitement, all the controversy of the Super Morning Show and all your favorite Joy shows when you go to myjoyonline.com/podcasts. Just select your favorite show and bring it all back again. Joy 99.7 FM, radio for discerning listeners.
It's radio. Joy 99.7.
Good morning and welcome to News File.